If you have an opinion about anything, specifically nowadays, you will be judged. Believe me, you will be judged for an opinion, whether you like it or not. Welcome to Ridley Speaks. I am your host, Carlos Ridley. In today's episode, we'll be talking about judgment. Judgment. In the previous episode, I mentioned something that happened to me as it relates to judgment. And I want to bring that topic into conversation today and really talk about how that impacts people on the other side of judgment. So the ones that are actually being judged, and also the people that are actually doing the judging. Because it is twofold and there's impact on both sides. And a lot of times we don't realize the impact. We know the impact of the end result when someone is judging another person or a group of people or a community, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't really look and understand how that impact affects the other person. So I think there's an impact there. Having said that, human beings are masters of judgment. We judge everything. We will judge everything and anything. Specifically, if we do not agree with an opinion, a policy, person, administrations, bosses, organizations, etc. It goes on and on and on. And even though, for the most part, people in general probably feel that judging or judgment in certain circumstances is wrong, we continue to do it. Now, there are things like competitions that are judged. If you watch TV and look at all of the reality shows that have competitions, singing competitions, personality competitions, dancing competitions, there are judges there that judge performances to come to an end result of who wins the competition. Those are based on what people actually see and their results. Now, people may agree or disagree on the end result, but for the most part, people are watching. They are getting a sample of whatever it is that they're looking at and judging, and they're able to come to a conclusion based off of what they see, the facts or the data of that, and come to a conclusion and judge on winners and losers. But in life, in the everyday world, society, human beings are judging people based off small sample sizes or no sample sizes at all. Now, people will use the term, and we all use this term and have used this term, perception is reality. Well, what is it before perception to get you to that? It's judgment. I'm looking at a person and I'm judging them based off of what they look like, what they wear, how their hair is, what style it is, what clothes are they wearing, what shoes are they wearing, what color are they, as in race. All these things come into the human psyche, depending on who you are. And what I see is this is a detriment to our society because all it does is create inequalities. It adds fuel to a fire such as racism. And maybe the worst part of it all is a lot of times we don't even realize that we're actually judging people. And I mentioned this in the last episode about being in a grocery store parking lot and seeing people walking around selling COVID-19 masks. And I stepped up to the plate to judge by saying, look at these people. Getting ready to judge them for walking around a parking lot and selling something even before I knew what it was. And it didn't even matter what it was. They're not breaking any laws. They're trying to generate revenue for themselves by selling COVID-19 masks. Trying to make $1. But yet I was just about getting ready to start judging. We've all been judged in some way or fashion. And sometimes we don't know because it's not even in our peripheral. And sometimes it's right in front of our faces. And how do we feel about that? Like, what does that make us feel like when we are being judged and we know about it? Now, some of us are like, I don't care. You judge me if you want to. I really don't care what you think. I fall into that boat. I admit it. But at the same time, do you speak up to say, hey, before you judge me about whatever it is, what's the reason? How do you even know me to judge me? Now, you'll hear me a lot mention or make comments about taking off your shoes and stepping into someone else's shoes, or looking through another person's lens. I'll say that a lot in these podcasts. I would hope that people who judge me, and again, you have a right to do whatever you want to as long as it's not against the law. So you can judge people. But I guess my point is, before you judge, before you come to that conclusion, take off the shoes or pick up the other set of glasses, look through the lens of that particular person, group, or people, and understand or try to understand why they, them, he or her does what they do or act the way they act or perform the way they perform before you go to the conclusion of a judgment. Now, you might find that everything that you thought about that person or that community or people or whatever is still the same conclusion. But at least you took the time to look back and see what may cause that person's actions or why they say what they say. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to come to some sort of conclusion. But if you judge someone based off of 5 minutes of them speaking or 5 minutes of you looking over them, and you judge them for a way that you think they are and they're actually the opposite, you've lost an opportunity. And now you've cast aspersions on someone that didn't ask for that. And then you go about your way and that becomes your truth or your reality when in fact it's really not the actual reality. Judgment. What makes judgment so crazy is that we do it all the time and there isn't any real consequences to it. You have a lot of people that will judge people based on, let's use something like politics. That's not a hot button right now, right? People are judging people off of who they perceive someone's going to, quote unquote, vote for, and they might not even know. But if they think you're going to vote for somebody that they don't want to vote for, you're being judged. And I always look at how we get to these points. And I'm using elections as an example, where depending on what side of the political fence you sit on or stand in, each side of that fence is going to judge the other side of that fence. And sometimes it even goes down to race. Again, that perception, but perception before is there's a judgment before the perception. Give you an example. Most of the African American community tend to vote Democrat. There's a smaller number of African Americans that will vote for or vote on the side of Republican. Now, majority of the African Americans that vote Democrat, when they know that someone, not all, but some of those, when they know that someone that they know is voting Republican on any particular candidate, there becomes a judgment. And then there becomes everything that follows after that. You're an Uncle Tom. You are a sellout. Why would you vote for someone on the Republican side? And on the flip end of that, there could be someone on, let's say, the Republican side and look at African Americans as, oh, I know you're going to vote Democrat because you are African American or Black. Already judging and not knowing. Now, you might say, well, what's the harm in that? And on the surface, there isn't any harm. But when you make or come to conclusions without actually knowing, that transforms to other things in different areas. Today it might be elections. Tomorrow might be in the workplace or in the schools. Just an example. Sometimes you can make comments or you might support a certain person and someone else will judge you as being on a certain side, when all it is that you like that individual person or thing, regardless of what they like. And then you're judged as being the same as they are. And sometimes that works in your favor and sometimes it doesn't. There's millions of people that love, let's say, a LeBron James for being considerably one of, or not the greatest basketball player of all time. But then others will look at who he might support and also judge you as also supporting that same person or cause. And maybe you don't. But then we start to get into these avenues of judging and not knowing. And then we might miss an opportunity of really knowing someone or a group of people or a community. Think about this in the lines of judgment. If we would all take a step back, step into someone else's shoes, or look through a different lens than our own, how much more better would we be as a society or as a people in solving issues that we tend to not solve? All the issues that have come up in 2020, and 2020 has been a year to remember, both good, bad, and different. But how can we tackle some of these issues with eliminating judgment without actual facts? How could the majority of white America, and I'm going to use race here, white and black, how could we eliminate a lot of the judgment if white America took a step back and looked into the lens of black America? And you know what? Let me halt there. It's not a white America or a black America or an Asian America or Hispanic America or a gay America or a straight America. It's just America. But what if white people took a step back and looked into the lens of black people and really looked into that lens? I'm not saying all, but some, majority, and look at what things have happened over the course of time in their lives and in their history, and the way they perceive things is the way they react in action against. Before we say, well, why does it always have to be white people? Hold on for a sec. Let me get over to the other side. Why can't black people do the same thing? Instead of judging all of white America or white people for slavery, even though no white person today was a slave trader back in the day. Why can't black people take a step back and look into the lens of their friends to see how they actually grew up? Did they grow up with a mother and father? And if so, how successful was that? Maybe that would tend to lead them in the area of, well, they think this way or they believe this way is because they had these things that I didn't have, which gives me a different perspective. Instead of white people trying to keep me down. Now, you might still come to the same conclusion after you've done the research. You might still come to that conclusion. And on the other side, you might say, no, black people are just, they are who they are, who I thought they were. Well, what about this? All Hispanics are over here illegally. How many times have you heard that? Does that make them any less worthy than any of us? At all? If you were in a country that was poor and you couldn't provide for your family the way that you wanted to, would you risk it all of trying to cross a border to come and have better things or a better life for yourself and your family? Although it might be illegal to do that without coming in like you're supposed to, but we sit here and we judge people as if we wouldn't do the same thing. And so those are things that I want to speak about and really have you think about and take a step back and actually ponder if you would come up with different conclusions about different things if you just took a step back and didn't judge, or judged after you've had the facts. This is an interesting topic, and we will talk about it more because it's not a one episode type of conversation. So, like what you hear, comment, subscribe, share, and we'll continue these conversations moving forward. Thank you for listening to Ridley Speaks. Have a great day.